Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here's your host, Joe Kuzma and Zac Celedonia.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. My name is Joe Kuzma, and we have a special guest, maybe a special guest host, I should say. Finally, after many years of mentioning your name here and you hanging around in the back rooms, I twisted this guy's tatted arms into coming onto the show. We call him Zac Celedonia, we call him Flash. Actually, Brian's the only one that calls you Zac Celedonia. He just can't say your name, but it's the one and only, as promised, Zac Celedonia. Take a bow, man.
Thank you, Joe.
How's it going?
Great, man. I appreciate you having me on after all these years. Like you said, I've always wanted to jump on, but never really pushed myself over the edge or found a way to find time. So I'm excited that I'm here, ready to talk some Steelers with you.
Yeah, and finding time, my schedule has been crazy. Brian's schedule is crazy, and it's just what a perfect time. We've got a happy Monday after the time change, which is just screwing with my sleep, and the advent of free agency. So half the stuff we're about to talk about is going to be invalidated, maybe. But the first and foremost, I got to put this out here. And main reason you're here on the show, too, as well. Zac asks me in the backgrounds. I'm not just coming on to agree with you on everything, right? Because we've been going butting heads on Twitter. I don't even know that we're really butting heads. You know what it is? You're super excited. You want a quarterback. But even you haven't gone like this high on a couple. Aaron Rodgers, maybe, which is understandable. I could sympathize with some of these things. But some of the other stuff that's out there,
you were with me on Rodgers, so yeah, that one was understandable.
So what do you think? Let's start this off this way, because it's inevitable we talk about quarterbacks anyways. But what is, in your mind, the number one thing the Steelers need to address? It doesn't have to be number one. It could be your top priorities to address this offseason.
Sure. That's tough. It would probably be a tie for me between, like you already alluded to it, my heart says quarterback, my head says the offensive line. Both pretty glaring needs to me, both very fixable needs to me. I've noticed a lot of people, when you talk about one or the other, if you're a quarterback guy or if you're an offensive line guy, whichever one you're not prioritizing, you get all kinds of people angry at you in the mentions talking about, oh, you want a quarterback? What about the line? You talk about the line. Oh, well, what about quarterback? I want both of those areas fixed, almost equally. And then everything else after that kind of filters in, cornerback, depending on what happens with Witherspoon and Hayden. Linebacker, depending on if they keep Schobert or not, which they probably shouldn't. And I guess you could throw in receiver at the end of that, but that also is dependent upon a few things that have yet to fall, like Juju's whole scenario. So definitely offensive line and definitely quarterback. Because right now they only have Mason and Haskins. So that's
and they didn't even really have Haskins. They just tendered him, but he was exclusive rights. Man, you had to throw a wrench into this thing and bring in Joe Schobert. See, I'm of the opinion, if everybody wants to go out there and they want to spend all these big bucks. Now, I mentioned Ryan Jensen probably wasn't going to hit the market. Late last night, like midnight, the news dropped after Tom Brady decides to come out of retirement, of course. I'm sure there's something else that's happened since the last show, too, I should bring up. I think I mentioned Carson Wentz on the last one, which is just like, it was funny. I think it was Field Yates, maybe, that tweeted out. He was talking about, wow, look at all these crazy quarterback moves. You got Russell Wilson, you got Aaron Rodgers, you got Carson Wentz and Tom Brady. And it was like top reply behind that, like everybody's got it upvoted. It was like, one of these things is not like the others. But the Schobert, the Schobert thing, it just for me is saving $7.8 million and then having to replace the inside linebacker
Yeah.
I don't think you're getting somebody better than Schobert necessarily for $7.8 million. So if they go and they get somebody else, you and I have talked Bobby Wagner.
Yeah.
And my only problem with him is age, but he's still playing at an elite level. You know what I mean? I feel like a hypocrite because it's like Aaron Rodgers playing at an MVP level at his age, and he's, entering his twilight years here. You would still welcome him with open arms. So I'm like iffy on like Wagner. Now, I'm just going to leave Schobert alone because I don't really know if they move him, and I know that
by any means, I don't hate the guy. He just, I had higher hopes for him, and I'm one of the nicer critics, I think, of Schobert because I'm not saying get him out of town immediately. I'm just open to the idea of cutting bait there and trying to go elsewhere. I have no idea what Buddy Johnson can do. Still, he was supposed to be something, and he was decently hot. When you look at what Dan Moore did last year, who was picked after Johnson, right? Or was he before?
Oh, man, you put me on the spot. I think he was before. I think he was before because I think they went 4 straight on offense.
Okay, yeah, you're right. Okay, so when you see Dan Moore, who started and ended up being, in my opinion, really good eventually. He shut down Myles Garrett the last time versus the Browns. I think Johnson was just really disappointing as a rookie and would like to see more of him if possible. But if he sucks, then never mind on that. Schobert's fine. I just think they could do better there. But like you said, you can't have superstars at every single position. If he's serviceable, we can leave that area alone. It's just possible they could upgrade that,
Yeah, and I think part of his problems are the same as Bush's. I think it has to do with the D-line that's in front of him.
Yeah, for sure.
I think most people are looking at Schobert because they think his contract is insane, and it's really you're talking about he's 12th or 14th or something in average when it comes to inside linebackers, which he's up there, but he's not making $15-20 million like the top guys.
Yeah, I think
it's just
he left Cleveland. The Jaguars backed the truck up for him, and nobody. That's all they think of is the headline. Oh, well, the Jaguars signed him for a huge contract, so he's probably expensive still. Not really the case anymore.
Yeah, it's because every new contract is bigger and better than the rest. And I went through all this entire list of linebackers. It was the only one. It's there's a couple that pop up because they were the guys we were looking at in the draft, like Leighton Vander Esch and Rashaan Evans, and they're coming around to second contracts, and you're like, did those guys really live up to their billing, and are you willing to pay them more than Schobert? Because they're probably looking to make, at least 10, 12 million. I'd be shocked if one of those guys took a deal that was only $8 million a year. You know what I mean? I just don't see it. Yeah, I just don't see it.
First round picks too. They both are used to getting paid good money, and I didn't follow Evans' career that well, even though that was a popular name for Steelers fans during that draft year. A lot of people wanted Rashaan Evans. I'm pretty sure I did too. It's tough to remember at this point. But Vander Esch did really, really good when he was younger. I remember the whole he'd do the wolf call thing, Dallas loved him down there. And I don't really know what happened after his first year or two. A lot of people
got hurt.
Yeah,
he got hurt. But last year he played I think he played every game or all but one. Yeah, I think he was 16, 17 game starter. So
that's good. I would take him, if we could afford him. You mentioned that name on Twitter the other day, and I was I'm for Vander Esch, honestly. You see so many rumors on Twitter and all these different hubs of, so-and-so is interested. Someone was talking about the Steelers' interest in Vander Esch a month ago. And, it makes sense because of their pre-draft interest. And he's a modern-day linebacker. He's athletic. He can cover. He can thump. So I would like him. I just don't know how much he's demanding,
Yeah, and it's interesting you brought up Buddy Johnson. I'm wondering sometimes if some of the linebacker picks I think are just strictly for special teams roles. They're not necessarily guys that are going to play. And you got to consider the names we just mentioned, Bush and Show, and then there's Spillane, Ulysses Gilbert. There's just a boatload of guys that were playing ahead of him. Marcus Allen as well, if you want to toss him into that mix. So it's just they had a whole ton. In fact, that's one of the dumb memes. I think you saw it. You may have seen it. It was floating around the back rooms. The dumb meme that came out that said something like the Steelers kept 6 inside linebackers over keeping Quincy Roche. And
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty bad already. It was talking about all the bad moves that Kevin Colbert's made. It's like, but let's just negate that he drafted real late pick defensive player of the year in the running for the last 3 years. The guy's TJ Watt's gonna hold the sack record here probably midway through the season this year. It's like, it was just one of the worst. And actually, he talks about my guy here, which was one of my priorities. Actually, is bringing back Terrell Edmonds. We may have some news already. You've retweeted it. It was these cryptic tweets from these players because they're not really allowed to be saying things either. So he tweets out, "It's already written," and you're like, "What is a contract?" But we don't know for who or for what. But this guy was saying that Edmonds was not only a mistake, a first round guy that should have been in the third round, which is just, that's pure speculation too. I think he's gone in the early second. He's probably a top 50 pick regardless.
Yeah.
Back then. And people forget Steelers needed a safety, so they go get a safety. They signed Morgan Burnett, who was supposed to originally start, so they throw Edmonds out there, and a lot of people have just I don't know. You have recency bias with some things, and then there's some things they just don't let go. And one thing they don't let go is if he makes a bad play in his rookie year. It was like the same thing with Bud Dupree forever. So this guy was also advocating to re-sign Edmonds, and we're like, wait a second. Is he good or is he bad? We can't figure out what the heck none of it made any sense. But anyways, another guy that falls into like these hot button categories, and maybe we'll come back to secondary, but I think I mentioned secondary enough. We know they need a safety in a corner. They got Arthur Millette coming back and Miles Killebrew, but Miles Killebrew is not a starter. Millette's maybe another Mike Hilton type role. So 2 years, I like that move. I like that move a lot. I thought he played well. But the man behind you, there's a whole lot of him. Juju Smith-Schuster.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like the Steelers are still in the mix to maybe sign him, and I was floating the idea of they might be able to pay 2 wide receivers because they're paying no one else on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, makes sense to me. It does. Well, real quick, touching back on Edmonds, I've always agreed with you on Edmonds that I thought the pick made sense from a high ceiling standpoint. I get it that people were disappointed. You know, some people wanted us to take Lamar Jackson. Some people wanted to I remember watching it at my friend's house and thinking we might get Minka because he was sliding. We did, but not in the draft.
What did he slide to, like 9?
I think of it somewhere in the mid-teens. I really don't remember now. He slid far
out.
Like, sick. Like, he's fallen a little bit. And Edmonds, you know, he's gotten better every single year. There might be a point in between, like, years 2 and 3 where he kind of plateaued. But these last 2 seasons have been great. All things considered, with what people expected of him and what he's been able to do. He's one of our better tacklers. And I was just saying this to my friends about Edmonds. When you get past the top 3, TJ, Cam, Minka, Edmonds is one of our most valuable and dependable defenders at this point. With what's going on with Tuitt, you could argue Highsmith too, I suppose. But Bush had his whole problem last year. Hayden was injured. You know, Sutton up and down. So Edmonds is in that upper echelon of our defenders now. And you're right, though. A lot of people that didn't like the pick still think he sucks. They still tag me in tweets being like, there's your boy whenever he makes a mistake. But he's really come into form, and I would like to see him stay. Also because safety is tough to get down with your partner, your chemistry. And him and Minka seem to have it figured out now, who's good at what. And the Steelers want to let Minka roam some more. And in order to do so, they need to keep or get someone like Edmonds who's a good box guy and can tackle well. So there's a lot of reasons I want Edmonds to stay. But I digress. Juju, I think it's possible he stays because last year his market wasn't very good. It was okay, you know, and he took the year with us to try and springboard himself into free agency again, or with us to make more money, and he gets hurt. So not that that's his fault, but I don't see how his market can go from almost nothing to, now he's going to get all this money tossed at him after he didn't really do anything this year with us, you know? So I think we've got as good of a chance as any as bringing Juju back. And, you know, a lot of these players, it comes down to what they want to do. And I think it is it's really going to come down to how Juju feels about our chance to compete here. Because I think Juju wants to win. I think he wants to be a part of a fun team that can make a push, at least at the playoffs. So I think the Steelers really have to sell that to him and say, man, I know right now times are a little rough with the emergence of the Bengals and everything else that's going on, but we have a plan in place and we want you to be part of it. Like, that needs to be their pitch to get Juju to stay, because he very easily could be like, all right, this has run its course. Let me try the Eagles or the Chiefs now. But he should be affordable.
Yeah, I mean, even affordable, I'm talking $12 million I'm totally cool with for Juju. 13.
Deontay 15, right? Deontay wants 15.
He might. I don't know if he's going to get all the way up there, but I still even think that's a fair number. I'm going to end up sneezing here in a second, so I'm going to apologize. I've been trying to hold it off. It's like right there. But I was looking at some of the cap numbers, and I hate just the cap numbers. I wish I could do an average per year on the wide receiver position for 2022. But you get some guys at the top here, like DeAndre Hopkins at 25, Kenny Golladay at 21. I hadn't looked at any of this because I didn't think that the Steelers were going to be in the market for a wide receiver, but it might make sense as far as what these guys may be in the market for. I mean, for 25 on a cap hit, I think you get both of these guys. Tyreek Hill, Mike Evans, Devontae Adams, and Amari Cooper are all over 20 or in the 20 range. And Amari Cooper going to the Browns, boy, is that an interesting one. At 20,
I know, yeah. I think he's way too expensive. I think he's still good, but I think I understand why the Browns traded so little for him. Money, that affects a lot of dudes. Is they can still play, but if they're making a lot of money, teams don't want to give that up, especially with the leverage that was pretty much gone from the Cowboys, because all those rumors came out that they were trying to trade Cooper and couldn't find a partner, so they were going to cut him. Once that's out there, it's hard for you to get like much more than a fourth or a fifth.
Yeah, that's funny. That's what was on that meme too. The Steelers only got Kevin Colbert was only able to get a third-round pick from Martavis Bryant. It's like he was going into a contract year, had been suspended multiple times. It's like he wasn't going to get re-signed. A third-round pick was like actually a boneheaded move by the Raiders, because I don't think he barely played, if he did play.
I remember seeing him for like one game maybe in a Raiders uniform. Yeah, he fizzled out quick there. So yeah, that was a great job by Colbert. Because yeah, we had very little leverage in that, and he was a problem child here. I loved him, but he was a problem child. So to get a third-round pick for him was really a good thing.
19 catches, 266 yards in 8 games with the Raiders back in 2018. Man, I tell you, and it was like the same thing with Antonio Brown. You're absolutely right. When you got a guy that's like in their last of their contract years, they got like 1 year left on their deal or whatever. And teams know that. And they know that the Steelers took a pretty major cap hit there. And that's actually going to segue into something else in about a minute. But let me stick on to just the wide receivers. There's a bunch of guys that are making like, you got $19 million for Keenan Allen, Chris Godwin, Cooper Kupp, Stephon Diggs, Robbie Anderson, Adam Thielen, Jarvis Landry, Brandon Cooks, Robert Woods, all north of $15 million, somewhere between 15 and 20 there. And even to that effect, Nelson Aguilar has got a cap hit of 14.8. Julio Jones, 14.3. You want to talk about bad trades, in my opinion. Mike Williams just inked his new deal. He's at 14, at least for this season. Corey Davis, 13.6. Cortland Sutton, 13.2. Michael Thomas, 13, but I'm sure his has been restructured a few times over. He had an insane contract. Yeah, you take a look at 2023 and beyond, he's at 28.2, 27.5 for cap numbers, and then a couple of void years. So it's just like, if they were to, let's say the Saints moved on from Michael Thomas this year, they would take a cap hit of $38.3 million just this season alone. That's unbelievable, the amount of money. And that's because they were in such cap trouble. So it just kind of gives you an idea if you see some of these deals. That's why I think the Steelers might not be as active in free agency, because I look at some of the names available, and then I look at their own players that are going to be free agents and what it might cost to bring them back. And that's going to eat up, I think, a pretty decent amount of their cap space, to be honest, if they even go after somebody. But I went through that centers list. Like I said, I don't see anybody, and everybody's just assuming that they're not going to go with Kendrick Green. If they sign a guard, then I think that means Green's going to be playing center. They're not going to just I don't think they bench Green entirely and replace the center and a guard and then put Green on the bench. That doesn't make sense to me either. I don't. They're not the team to do that, and it's not because they won't admit mistakes, but it's also because they realize this guy was a fish out of water, playing out of position for his rookie season. So they're going to give him another shot, I think.
I'd be giving up pretty fast on Kendrick Green for sure. I know that he didn't perform as well as his counterparts around him. When you look at Najee and Freiermuth and Dan Moore, they're definitely the headliners of the class after last season. And there was a moment or two where Green looked like he was figuring it out. But I agree. I think it's a little early just to assume they're going to kick him down the line at guard, or worse, bench him, especially because Colbert's he isn't always 100% honest, but he's pretty transparent, and he's alluded to the fact that they still want to give Green a shot at center. And with Jensen getting re-signed to the Bucks, the center class, free agent wise, isn't really that good. I agree. There really isn't that much sticking out to me. There's way more guards. I don't know how much money they have, but you got guys like Brendan Scherf, who's going to break the bank, Tomlinson, James Daniels, Alex Kappa. There's a lot of guards out there and not a lot of centers. So if they want to sign a lineman and draft one so they're not totally handcuffed in the draft and they have to draft lineman, I would bet money on them going after a guard or a tackle to replace Chooks, because there's some tackles too.
Yeah, I wonder about tackle. My thought process in the way that the Steelers usually operate, it's either they bring back Chooks or they're going to keep Zach Banner and draft someone. I think that's the way it goes. If they bring back Chooks, then I think Banner, even $5 million, it's like a drop in the bucket that you're saving. But it's like, hey, the guy hasn't been healthy, hasn't been available. So I was looking at it a little bit more. By the way, Laken Tomlinson is another one from the 49ers when it comes to the guard class. There are some guards out there. And that would be fine with me as a veteran guard. You're keeping Green at center maybe, but the Steelers, do they draft a tackle? They don't draft tackles in the first round either.
Not very high.
No, it'd be unprecedented. Now, second round, they might go sniff around there. It's intriguing, and it keeps you. You know what you need to be on the watch for, really, Zach? Isn't just like everybody's watching quarterback. The Steelers are putting out those smoke signals. Offensive line. I've said the center from Iowa. Jordan Davis, man, I don't think he falls out of top 10, but you just never know. You know what I mean?
Davis, I would love Davis. I think he's you can't ignore that athletic testing. I know every year, I myself, people get sucked into the combine numbers, and they don't always mean everything. But what Jordan Davis is able to do, that athleticism, that's not, a lot of people are like, why would you draft Jordan Davis high if he's only going to play 50% of the snaps? A guy who can move like that and is that stamina, he's not going to play 50%. They'll move him around the line. He'll probably play closer to 75, if not more, if you drafted him high too, because then you have more of a reason to play him. So I think Davis is a monster. Same with Wyatt. Is that his teammate? The other guy who blew up the combine? They both killed it. And I would not be opposed, and it would be very Steelers-like for them to just be like, all right, best player available at 20. It's a D lineman who should have gone top 10. We're going to take him because, Cam Hayward is still incredible. He's getting up there in age, though. He has been for the past few years. And to it, no one knows what's going on with him. I wish I did. Alualu's coming back, which is great, but he also is older.
35 years old.
Yeah, and then you've got
chicken.
Exactly. And I really like what Loudermilk showed towards the end of the year last year. I think he is going to be a good player for us. And Wormley really impressed me too with his ability to come in, especially versus the Ravens. He gets really fired up to play them. So I like those pieces, but they could definitely get another stud for the defensive line to pair with Cam.
And that's definitely looking ahead to the future because, like you said, Cam's still playing elite, and he gets better every year. But there is a reality to it. Now, he's signed for several more years, as is to it. But by the time those contracts come off the books, somebody that would be drafted like a Jordan Davis, and it's just a pipe dream. And I know there's other areas you fill needs, but I'm talking about like you get a guard and you bring Chooks back, and all of a sudden it's like the people are going to complain, but this is part of the plan, I think, was a 2-3 year process, is also that these younger players have to get experience and get better. So, like you mentioned, Dan Moore, Kevin Dotson, these guys, this is really their first year starting altogether. If they could play even average or above average, I don't know how much of this is Ben. I don't know how much of this is Matt Canada. There definitely had to be limitations somewhere along the line there as well. Offensive line also, don't forget, wasn't the same 5 starters across the board for every single game. It was like a lot of things in flux. I have the boomerang back around, man. Wide receiver contracts.
Yes.
Last year, this year, Tim Patrick, Denver Broncos. Dude's making $9.2 million. Randall Cobb made $9.5 last season with the Packers, and Marvin Jones with the Jags made $8.7. So if that gives you some ideas about what might be in the market for like a Juju or Deontay Johnson. Someone just signed like a 5-year, $60-ish million too. I'm trying to think who it was.
Was that Williams?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch.
Was that Williams? Mike Williams?
Yeah, but there was someone else I just saw, I think, that signed something too. But
okay.
Anyways, we're off the wide receiver track. I mentioned something about cap numbers. We talk about crazy trades. There's 2 guys that come up when we're talking about that. One, obviously, dovetails into the quarterback conversation with Deshaun Watson, but let's pull back a little bit. Let's pull back a little bit on this. There is one free agent that's out there, if I haven't mentioned, that's in the same category. You're talking about defensive lineman Eddie Goldman, who was released from the Bears. Oh, would he be an excellent signing for the Steelers? But
Florida State.
I'm sorry?
Florida State.
I don't remember where he's from, to be completely honest.
He's an athletic big boy.
Yeah, but him getting released, and that was a cap thing. So these guys aren't looking for discounts. Everybody just thinks you're going to be able to go to Dollar Tree, which even increased now they're $1.25 tree. But everything's going up, even with the players, even with the Dollar Tree. But Fletcher Cox, that's what I was looking at. I got to pull up good old Fletcher Cox here because the Eagles would be insane. And I know the Steelers, there was, again, rumors last year, rumors this year. But this guy, 2022, would be almost $41 million in dead money. Like, they lose money. There's no cap savings for the Eagles to move on from him this year. And it's all these prorated bonuses and void years. So he's under contract this year and next year. They would also eat 28.1 and then 3 more void years. This is your cap is the myth. This is why I bring this up. This is where it no longer is fantasy, because then it's almost 17 million, 9.3 and 3.1 when he's not even with the team with the void years. That's how much they move it around. They shuffle it so much. That's how the cap becomes a myth. Eventually you got to pay it.
Yeah. Down, kick the can.
Oh my God. It's like, so as much as I would like Fletcher Cox, who is either turning 32 or is 32 years of age now, my goodness, what would it take, like you said, for the Eagles to make that kind of move? It's not. This isn't Amari Cooper where the Cowboys are saving the money and now they take $20 million off the books roughly. All of his bonus already paid out. I don't know that all of it is, but they're doing okay, and they signed Michael Gallup. That's who it was.
Oh yeah,
I'm gonna have to see what he just got. He got something like 5 years and $65 million or something like that, and that was the move they made and then they got rid of Cooper. They get like a draft pick for that. And it's like, it's really just one of these salary dumps that teams do. This is not a salary dump. For the Eagles to move on from Fletcher Cox, they're going to need some compensation to make up for $40 million worth of other players they could be paying. So,
I don't get that at all. I don't get the rumors then. If they're going to trade him, why would you do that? Because I don't think anybody's going to give him like a first for Cox at this age. And he, if I remember correctly, what happened at the deadline, supposedly, because you never know how reliable these guys are, especially because I'm pretty sure it was La Canfora who said this, who's like, he bats 50, 75. But he said that we were the team that was the closest to getting Cox, and the holdup was we were trying to offer, I think, a third, and they wanted a second, or we were offering a fourth and they wanted a third. It was one of those middle ones, and the Steelers wouldn't budge, and we didn't get him. So it's hard for me to imagine that they think they could get a 1 for him, and that would be the only scenario that would make sense for them to trade him with all that dead money they would have to pay,
Yeah, and this is why they'd reduced his cap numbers. You go back to 2016, it's like 6.5, 9.4, 11.3, 11.9, 17.1, and then about 13 million last year. They kept moving that bonus money around from the 6-year, $102.6 million extension in 2016. And this contract from the extension in 2016, right, goes, it's 10 years. It goes through 2026 with the void years. It's absolutely nuts. And if they trade anything, that the Eagles, this is like the Bobby Bonilla contract. It's just going to keep paying Fletcher Cox, except just
happy Bobby Bonilla Day.
It's wild. It's wild. Gallup was 5 years, $62.5 million. So, which
they really like
that. That's about 12 on average, depending on how they spread that out. I'm cool with that. Go ahead, bring Juju home for that. I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
Let's see
for that move, but I understand that Gallup really was playing at a high level before he busted his knee up, and honestly, good on Dallas in my opinion for rewarding him as such, because that sucks as a player to be in your contract year and you're performing to the standards you want and you bust your knee up. Like, that's terrible. So I'm glad they gave him that deal from a human being standpoint, and he is a good player, so I understand it. And that's not a lot of money for a good receiver. Like you said, that's why I'd be okay paying Deontay 15 if push came to shove, because when he's on, he's on. Drops aside, he really didn't have many last year until the playoffs came, and I think he could be worth that number, depending on where else we put money,
That's another thing that people are hanging on to a little too much, I think, is like a drop here or there. He was pretty consistent last year. The season before, I'll give it to you, but
yeah, he was awesome last year for us. He probably accounted for at least 3 or 4 of our wins because he was our most explosive player on offense, consistently anyway.
Yeah, I was looking at this Amari Cooper contract too. His cap number would have been 22, up from 12 last season, and then 20 in each of the next 3 seasons, which is what the Browns inherit. So most of the bonus money had already been paid off with the Cowboys. It was pretty smart. It's hard to believe he's been there since 2018. Like, he had 4 years with the Cowboys. I know.
Yeah, they traded for him. It was a big deal, and it seemed to really work. I can still see the play. I think it was either overtime or the game was about to be over itself. And Dak, if he was healthy, he threw it towards a goal line, and it got tipped up in the air, and Cooper caught it and ran it in, and the Cowboys won. And I was like, that's it. Amari Cooper has done it. And I was like, the ball got tipped into his hands. But yeah, he is a good player. $20 million is a lot though. So I don't know. That's a lot for Cooper, I think.
Yeah, no, it most certainly is. And to think that with Baker Mayfield at the helm, and I heard some rumblings about, here's the other guy with the crazy contract, Deshaun Watson. And then there's been, I think these ones are mostly fake reports and rumors about the Cleveland Browns being interested. And
hope so.
Why do you say hope so? Like, I thought you wanted him in black and gold with the shot.
No, I do. I don't want the rumors of him being, or the Browns being interested.
Oh, I see. Because you want Baker to overthrow Amari Cooper.
Yeah.
The same way he was with OBJ.
I like Baker, from an attitude standpoint. He's got moxie, and I really liked him in college, and it was cool from an outsider's perspective to see how he was able to kind of revive the vibe in Cleveland, But I mean, he had a really, really bad year last year, and I know he was injured, but it's hard for me to give an honest evaluation of what Baker can be at this point in his career,
Yeah. So the man, the myth, the legend, the one I've been fighting about. Not to get in, I don't need to get into Baker Mayfield on this show. I really don't. I don't want to. Let's just it's fair enough. He's had different offensive coordinators and coaches and injuries and everything else, but they put enough around him that this is put up or shut up this year.
Yeah.
So Deshaun Watson.
Yes.
You know why I'm against him, right? I liked him coming out of college. It was this Bill O'Brien that signed this deal before he left town here with the four-year extension of $1 bazillion. and then these cap hits. So his cap number in 2022 alone, 40.4, and his dead money is 51.2. That is for 2022. Now, the Steelers wouldn't inherit all of that. They would be on the, let's say the Steelers made this deal. And this is the reason why the Texans want what they want. Not only that, he was playing as a top quarterback before all of this stuff happened off field. His base salary is 35. Then his base salary is 20, but a 17 million roster bonus, so it's effectively 37. And then it's 32 and 32. He does it, all the rest of the bonuses for the Texans go from his cap hit being 51.2 to 10.8 and 5.4, and of course they save those roughly $32 million per season with him being gone, and 37 in the middle there. But this is the reason why they want all that draft compensation. They got an awful lot of money tied up into this guy, especially this upcoming year. For me, I liked him coming out of college. I don't like the off-field stuff. I don't like what it would cost in a trade. I don't like his contract. And I don't like the fact he hasn't played football for a year. So I guess we'll leave it there at you. And just to throw this out there, too, I've been throwing around over the cap was saying 28 for the Steelers, I think, 28.5, 27 cap space. Right. They're adjusting this, but I saw a figure that came out. It might have been, it's one of these NFL insiders, might have been like Tom Pelissaro or somebody. I think the Steelers effectively have 35 because there's the adjustments with the rollovers and other calculations and accounting. So we're somewhere between, now they're reporting just under because of the Arthur Millette news and stuff, but we'll say between 28 and 35. 35 is the ceiling. Watson would eat all of that up, and some people say, oh, just tear up the contract and you can redo this, and then you get into Fletcher Cox territory because you got to throw that money somewhere, and it's got to be some sort of extension because there's the only way you restructure it is you end up in a Ben Roethlisberger situation like last year where he's owed like $42 million and almost a quarter of your cap.
Kick the can.
Yeah.
I got you.
Yeah, and in order to do that, then you end up, you bite the bullet really bad down the road, and we still don't know these all the way out the woods. There's civil suits and stuff. We've seen players get in trouble for non-courtroom type stuff. And I know he's had kind of the Texans shut him down for a year. Will Goodell just be like, well, he sat a year, he did his penance, so to speak? I don't know. We haven't heard anything official from anyone in, as far as discipline and when it comes to the NFL. So, but that aside, that's the biggest risk there, aside from mortgaging a lot of your future with the cap or the draft.
Yeah, there's a lot of risk. Absolutely, there's a lot of risk, and I'd be lying if I said I have a total grip on how teams do their cap situations and how they take advantage of the salary cap, how they disperse their money and cut it out and split it over time. I don't understand all of that. It's a large part of why the salary cap's a myth is what it is. And I can't take credit for that, by the way. That's been an online joke for a while. I'm just a big believer in the salary cap being a myth to an extent, because I agree. You don't want to just make problems for your future self all the time. So I don't know what they could do or what it would take for them to figure out how they could afford Deshaun while still being able to add other players, because I don't want them to. If you asked me, oh, well, if the Steelers trade for Deshaun, that means they get nobody else this year. That includes their important in-house signings. Well, that's just not like realistic to believe that could happen because they have to add other pieces. So I haven't sacrificed that in my desire to acquire Watson by saying I don't want them to make any other moves. Maybe it's naive of me to just hope that they would do it and then still have money to re-sign Edmonds, sign a guard, and then, focus on the draft. So I don't have a educated response for the debate about his salary cap number.
They wouldn't be able to do those other things. More than likely.
So the money thing, I don't really have a snappy, smart response for you. That is not my wheelhouse. The fact that we have reached out and talked about it and tried to figure and monitored the situation closely. And in spite of these reports from some, because all the main hubs, Jason Lock and Fora, who else? Can't really think of names right now, but a lot of these mainstream NFL getting paid to do this people have reported the Steelers are out. And you're still getting some reporters, check marks next to their name, that are saying we're still interested. So I think there's interest there. The Steelers are just trying to, credit to you, play it smartly because they're not going to trade 3 first-round picks, and they're not going to mortgage their future. Mm-hmm. I think it's down to the Panthers and the Saints are the top 2, and the ball's in their court to get him or not. If they can't get him, we're still right there, I think, as the next team in line that he'd want to go to. Us and the Seahawks.
Did you hear about the Eagles as part of that too?
I did hear about the Eagles, and then I heard they were out. So, but that makes me sound like a hypocrite because I'm saying some say the Steelers are out, but I say we're in. So the Eagles are
no, it only works with us. So, that's definitely it.
I only believe the stuff that my narrative.
Exactly.
But yeah, Joe, no, I get it for sure. To acquire Watson, it would take a big commitment of the cap. We'd have to trade away something. I just think he's worth it because I know he's had a year off, but I do think he is top of the line. Arguably the best. Is Brian McFadden, who I love, everybody in Pittsburgh loves, great former cornerback of ours. He did a show with James Wexell, Jim, the other day, and Jim was very against the Watson thing. We even had a fun little back and forth on Twitter ourselves. McFadden got him on his side in a sense, where Wexell was more open to what BMAC was saying, and McFadden said, When Watson was still playing, he would have taken him over Pat Mahomes. Like, that's how good Watson can be at his peak. And I think if you could acquire that on your team, you should. Because the Steelers – sorry, I'm rambling a little bit now. But
oh, no, it's good. Ramble on.
I've taken exception to the fact that a lot of people are – saying rebuild. The Steelers are in a rebuild. Now, you can have different definitions for the term rebuild, I guess, on a person-by-person basis, but I just don't see the Steelers in that. My heart might be too in it, but when you have the best defensive player in football, not named Aaron Donald, Cam Hayward, who's getting older, like we said, Minka Fitzpatrick.
Elite. Grown-ass man. I got to throw that in there.
An elite grown-ass man. You have 3 superstars on defense that are ready to win now. And on offense, you've got Najee Harris, Freiermuth, Deontay. Juju's up in the air, but this roster can go.
Claypool can go too.
Claypool. This roster can go, I think. And I know they have to add some pieces on the line. And like every team can add pieces. I just don't think we're in this rebuild state. So there's people that don't want Watson because they think it'd be pointless because we're just not in a position to win right now. I disagree with those people, and I think that we are. So
does he put you over the top though with what you might have to sacrifice? Because this is what I think does end up happening, and it circles back around to the Joe Schobert comment, maybe rolling with like Zach Banner or not, and then maybe you have a rookie or Joe Haig or somebody starting on the line. Like, there's going to be sacrifices somewhere with who plays in certain spots, because if he eats up enough of that cap space and you kind of try and make other room, the secondary, for example, they've got to do something. It's either bring Edmonds back, Witherspoon back, or replace those guys. And I say Witherspoon with the idea that Joe Hayden's spot was up for grabs for Witherspoon if he comes back.
Yeah,
I don't think Hayden comes back. He would have to have, I mean, geez, even Devin McCourty just signed like 1 year, $9 million or something to go back to the Patriots. So,
I saw he signed. I didn't see for how much, but yeah, that's a high number for him.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's like he's been a top earner with the team and with the NFL for so long, and he's going to either try and earn or retire, and he's 33 years old. He missed 4 games last year. So it's like, do you put all your eggs in one basket there? And those are the type of decisions. Or do you end up, sometimes you got to get lucky and have maybe some low draft picks or undrafted guys that play and do well. James Pierre was not that type of guy, but that's what you're looking at, I think, if you have Deshaun Watson. Now, the counter argument is the entire arms race. It's having a quarterback and getting after the quarterback.
Yeah.
And the AFC North, I think everybody has guys that can get after the quarterback, although Calais Campbell's getting up there in age too with the Ravens. And Justin Houston. So it's like but usually they have somebody, Tyus Bowser or somebody's going to jump in there. But otherwise too, you've got the same thing going with the quarterbacks and then the rest of the AFC, and you throw Russell Wilson in this mix and Mahomes and Allen and it gets crazy. And Herbert, you never know what he's going to end up like. Derek Carr has been playing and balling out a lot better than usual than what we're used to. He's upped his game. We'll see if he continues. So I know I defend Mason Rudolph there, but it's like, hey, if you could put the rest of these studs around this guy, maybe he doesn't make as many mistakes. I understand how you think Watson puts you over the top, and you got to have the quarterback play, and the quarterback play has been suspect. There's been a lot of things. Randy Fichtner, a problem. Losing Bell and Brown, a problem. Ben with his elbow, a problem. There's been a lot of different things over the last few years. I think that's been part of the rebuild that you kind of allude to, but people don't see it because the Steelers don't take that big slide. Other teams go completely in the can, have to wipe the slate clean, new GM, new coach, new everything, and come back around. And it's kind of like everybody's just like, oh, you throw a quarterback in there and then you're competitive. But there's very few. Would Watson do that? I think so. I just struggle to find out how they're going. They don't have the ammunition like the Eagles have draft picks. They supposedly offer Jalen Hurts or Rager maybe too. And then what was the other one? Like Seattle now has all of this capital because of trading Russell Wilson. So they have the ammo to make a better deal, but Watson has the no trade clause. And it's like he could say no to this, no to that. Nah, it rains too much in Seattle. I don't want to go there.
Yeah, you know dude. I mean? Yeah, I agree. That's the thing. I was actually. I mean, I don't expect everybody to have my whole takes chronologically in order and memorize them, but I really was like not paying attention to the Deshaun Watson thing much at all until the Sean King stuff happened and people started connecting us to him. And now it's like every day, seemingly, there's something else about this whole, oh, well, he wants to go to Pittsburgh, but they don't want to give enough. And it's going to come to a head at some point, if that's even true, because if you're Watson, you're going to start feeling like, well, shoot, man, if they don't want me there, like, screw this. Like, I've been trying to say I'll go there, but if they won't give enough, then I'm going to go to Seattle or Philly, because that's 100% true. We cannot give the most. Even if we were willing to give like our first round pick this year, our second next year, and something else, that is peanuts compared to what the Eagles or the Seahawks could do with offering multiple first round picks. So it's tough because, I don't want to sound so naive and hopeless being like, oh, well, the ball's all in Deshaun Watson's court. Like, he controls the whole thing. I'm sure he has a strong say, the no trade clause. But if the Texans are getting offered 3 firsts, 2 players, and a second, and the Steelers are offering a first, a second, and a player, they're going to sit with Deshaun and look at him and be like, dude, like, get real. Like, we want to, like, send you to a good location, but we're not going to send you away and not, like, get some kind of good value. So I appreciate that the Steelers are involved and they're trying to make a run. I just don't know how realistic it is. I'm kind of just really hoping and preparing myself for the ultimate disappointment.
Yeah, I don't know that I'd be that disappointed if he doesn't come, because you're hoping he's the same player that he was and he's stayed in shape and the game's still with him. And I talk about the contract, and then you look at Aaron Rodgers, and it makes it sound hypocritical, but we know Aaron Rodgers, MVP, league MVP level, you know what I mean? But for a couple of years, Watson would represent. How old's Watson right now? Hold on, I got it up here. 26. I mean, that's a decade of football coming up, and the salary cap will keep rising. Yeah. So that 32 and 30, like 37, I don't like that so much. 32 isn't going to be expensive in 2 years. Yeah. You know what I mean? That's going to be about the new norm. I'm more or less looking at it this year that the Steelers have a lot of holes. Could they make this work? And will it work? And then are you going to trade for the guy and Mason plays anyway 6 or 8 games because he's suspended? Then you look really foolish. And you've given away a first and whatever else. And yeah, I mean, that's where I'm at.
get suspended. I do think he's going to get a suspension wherever team he goes to. Like similar to Ben, he might get a 6 and then have it reduced to 4 or something like that. If we were to acquire him, I am assuming that he would be suspended for a couple games. Yeah. It might help the trade, honestly, because we could trade less. Like, oh, well, he's suspended, so we'll give you less.
Yeah, I got one more with the trade clause type thing, too. It was kind of
Sure.
like, oh, geez, how did I want to phrase this now? Now I lost it. I lost the thought. It'll come back to me, though. It'll come back to me. It was kind of like, it has something to do with like his right of refusal and where he can go and what teams can offer, and I totally lost it. But it was, I think that would be a destination. Houston, I don't think is that. Maybe that they sat the guy for a year,
Yeah.
and didn't move him and ate money. Like they'll do it again. I don't think they're that desperate. I don't think they're that desperate to move him. So that's the other side of it.
Yeah. They could sit on him for sure. That's why I'm like, it's easier to talk in person about it than just like rattle off tweets because I am extremely hopeful and I want it to happen, but it all comes with, afterthoughts. And I'm aware of all these things for sure. And it's a long shot. And I still have my sights set on the possibility of getting Malik Willis or Kenny Pickett. If it comes down to that, it's I've just been swept away with all the recent news that's come out about him. He wasn't even on my mind until this stuff started coming out this past week.
I hate to sound like the smartest guy in the room, but I had him up on I had him up on the board, actually, his name, and I was holding off because I knew that news was coming. And I think King, well, we got another King to talk about here in a second, Peter King, formerly of, I don't know if he's still with Sports Illustrated, but that's where everybody knows him from. But anyways, I knew the news was about to drop with the Watson stuff, and I had it's queued up. I'll probably have another one of these arguments against articles saying many of the same things. But Peter King now suggesting a Jimmy Garoppolo trade to the Steelers for a second-round pick. That would a conditional second-round pick that becomes a first-round pick if he's active for 15 games or more. And it's like, how about a conditional fifth-round pick if he plays at all? Like,
I don't understand the Jimmy. I do and I don't, because GMFB, like they hit and miss. And this morning, Peter Schrager did the same thing. He's like, Steeler fans, really interesting conversation going on at the table this morning. Would you trade the 49th overall pick or whatever we have for Jimmy Garoppolo? No. And everyone in the comments, no, dude, no, we wouldn't. No, that goes against the whole, you have all these needs. Why trade them for Watson? Why trade a second round pick, which is a great pick, a high pick, for Garoppolo? And the whole thing about trading for him that I hate, it's his money. If he was cut outright, or if the Niners, I don't understand. God bless you. Oh. I don't understand how they do this because, again, I'm not a cap expert. But if the Niners were able to take on at least half of his money or cut him, I'm more open to the idea of trading for him. Not for a second-round pick, but it's just not a good enough upgrade at the quarterback spot. Garoppolo's better than Rudolph, in my opinion, but he's not worth a second-round pick, and he's not worth the money he makes.
There you go. That's my whole thing when I come back to Rudolph. I'm not trying to say the guy's the second coming, and he's going to have a bust in Canton, and then he's the next Ben Roethlisberger. That's what most people miss. And I made this smart-ass comment on Twitter the other day. I said, if Rudolph was coming out of college this year, most of the people out there in draft Twitter would have him linked to the Steelers in some of their mock drafts in the first round. There's the same way they do Matt Corral and Sam Howell and even Kenny Pickett. We don't know where Kenny's going to go. He may get overdrafted. You know what I mean? So that's the point is like a lot of people hang on to Rudolph having 8 starts with practice squad guys, and I mentioned their names a million times over in 2019. You saw how much worse it got. Duck Hodges won a couple games, and then you saw what happened with Duck Hodges when it turned midnight and the glass slippers were gone and everything turned into a pumpkin for him. So that's
an interception game, dude. That was we were riding high with Duck, and then the Bills came to town and popped our bubble. I was excited when that game started because I thought that was going to be like our turning point to the playoffs, and Ducks stood no chance in prime time versus
The
the Bills.
Buffalo fans that came there too were there. That was a Sunday night game. They moved it to Sunday night. They were there all day.
That was the game, right? When they were all happy, but they celebrated Renegade. The Bills fans, they prepared for Renegade. Isn't that what happened that game?
Yeah, it was just insane. They were there. I've never arrived at the tailgate lots. Of course, it was the cash lots where I'm at. And it was packed. It was almost completely full. And I'm down there, especially on primetime games. I'm usually there about 4 to 5 hours, like the full maximum amount of time. I'm going to get my fill of eat and drink. And they were just everywhere. And it was like, yeah, that game, he had multiple opportunities to pull out that game. And it's not to say that Rudolph would have maybe done better in that same situation. I can't say that for sure. But the problem is we don't know. And that's been my whole point with him, is just 10 starts. And Haskins even, I think I said 16 games. I think Haskins has had maybe a dozen starts or 14 starts. Hasn't been 16.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not going to look it up right now. I've mentioned it a million times. But that's where I'm at with Jimmy G is I would much rather Rudolph or Haskins for what they cost is probably about the same level of play that you're going to get. And there's still people out there that don't realize that Jimmy G and the 49ers going into these NFC title games had nothing to do with Jimmy G. His numbers are atrocious. He played decent against the Rams and then stuck a knife in their back, in their own back with that throw at the end, trying to force something to happen. Those are isolated plays. I could let an isolated play like that maybe go, but when you look at the other stuff, like in Green Bay, I think he just threw 8 passes in one of those playoff games against the Packers. 8 pass attempts. It's like you got George Kittle, you got Kyle Shanahan, and you think he's going to come over to the Steelers with Matt Canada, who everybody hates right at this moment. And he's gonna be take everybody to the promised land. The guy he doesn't stay healthy either. That's the biggest knock on him.
You can't he's got injury issues, and I agree. Yeah, Jimmy G does not enthuse me, man. And honestly, the Haskins Rudolph thing, I wouldn't sub either of them out for Garoppolo, especially for a trade. My whole thing with the quarterback, not my whole thing, but I am very much on the side of Tomlin and others who believe that mobility is crucial in today's quarterbacks. So whereas I'm not kicking Mason out of town or thinking he's just totally incapable, but until we get a guy who is more of an athlete, I'm going to push for that because I think that is crucial.
Yeah, we're not going to go into the draft right now. I already know. I've mentioned
the draft has guys that I would like, but I'm not really I know I like Pickett and I like Malik. That's pretty well known if you follow me on Twitter or if you talk to me ever in passing. After that, it's pretty scarce. I like Desmond Ritter's tools, but I don't like Carson Strong. I don't like what's the kid's name? I'm drawing a blank. Corral's got athletic.
Matt Corral, Sam Howell.
Thank you. Don't like Howell, even though I'm sure someone's going to hear that and be like, oh, he just contradicted himself because Sam Howell is really athletic and a good runner, but that isn't the end all be all. I don't like his arm ability. You got to have everything. It isn't I just want Lamar Jackson in here. I want a guy like Josh Allen. I want a guy like Rodgers even. Rodgers has amazing mobility, especially for his age. He's always been a mobile guy who can scoot around, run, throw on the run. That's all I'm asking for. I don't need a guy like Lamar or Kyler Murray, this guy who's going to run a 4.3 and run for 70 yards a game. That's not what I want. I just need someone mobile. You know?
It's quite surprising. This was the Andrew Filippone thing. Was talking about Teddy Bridgewater's another name that comes up. And he was talking about just running the football with him. And he's like, he's statuesque. It's like Mason Rudolph in that Lions game ran for 53, or no, I'm sorry. He had 4 carries in that game. He had 1 carry in one other game, I think. He got in maybe the Chiefs game or something like that where they pulled Ben early toward the end of the season. But he had five carries. Yeah.
I saw it on Twitter. I was so mad I wasn't watching. That's how you know that game was bad. But I heard he had a long versus the Chiefs. Yeah.
I wish I wouldn't have watched. 5 carries, 53 yards for Mason Rudolph. Doesn't take a lot of sacks when you look at it versus his attempts. That's why I'm out on Mariota. That's why I'm out. Trubisky doesn't take a lot of sacks either. He just fumbles the ball for God. I don't even know what. It's like he doesn't take a lot of pressure, which makes it even worse because the lower percentage of pressure he takes is followed by a very high percentage of giving up the football. Mariota just gives it up, period. He's negative plays, sacks, and fumbles, both. That's why he lost his job. That's why I'm not into these guys. Jimmy G doesn't really turn the ball over, but he's one of the other guys on here just said it. I forgot who it was. It might have been Mike Nicastro if you follow him in his show. I think he just said Jimmy G takes you from losing in the wild card to losing in a divisional game.
Yeah.
And I think that's true. So that's why I'm out on most of these guys. I haven't gotten into the draft yet. I could handle the idea of taking someone in the draft. And for all the other purposes that we said, very well, they could. And I'm not going to lie to think that they wouldn't try and upgrade at quarterback. But I think a lot of people in their talent evaluation, they've seen Rudolph because they watch the Steelers games. They don't watch anything else. They watch some preseason games, which are just not a barometer for a benchmark for how players are going to turn out or how they play. But they don't watch these other games and see, like, the Raiders won't even let Mariota as a gadget player. The idea should be that he's a dual threat with his feet. And they don't let him throw the ball in that offense when they let him in because it turned the ball over. It's just it's just ridiculous to me. So
I'm with you for sure. I've never been of let's get Mariota in here. I really think that he does have injury problems as well. And it's not really say that, but it's on paper. It's factual. Like, he has problems staying durable. And whereas he fits the whole like athletic quarterback that I want, it goes back to the whole, he's athletic, but that isn't the end all be all for me. It's an important trait that I want the quarterback of the future of the Steelers to have, but it isn't like, that's not my end all be all. So Mariota, I'm really not open to. I'm not open to them bringing in any quarterback that's going to cost a lot of money. That also, I think, is getting lost in translation with my tweets whenever I'm talking about, like, before the Watson thing, I said the quarterback room is going to be Mason, Haskins, Trubisky, and Malik Willis. A variation of those four is what I think it's going to come down to if we don't get Watson. Take Trubisky out and put in Tyrod Taylor if you want to. Take Malik out and put in Kenny Pickett if you want to. But I think that's going to be the quarterback room. Those four dudes, Haskins and Mason, already signed and in camp, and they're going to sign a cheap veteran, hopefully cheap, and draft a guy.
The only reason I'm against the cheap veteran, it's going to muddy the waters at training camp. Who takes the QB1 reps? Who takes QB2? QB3 is barely getting anything. QB4.
Mason are probably ones, probably at first anyway, until like they saw something else.
The only reason I think that somebody like Taylor or Brissett, that's the other one I couldn't think of. That's been why?
I'm sure he's a nice guy, and like I know there's a connection with Flores, but that's another, like, I think people think Brissett and Bridgewater like can run and like use their feet, and I think it's just really misguided. I think they just see that they're black quarterbacks and they think, oh, this guy can run, and Brissett is as immobile as Mason Rudolph is, and Bridgewater, I fear for Teddy Bridgewater when he takes the field. He's so frail, and I know Lamar Jackson is also a little frail, but Bridgewater's been hurt so many times, and he's just got bad ligaments, dude. Like,
and he doesn't really avoid a whole lot of contact. That's the thing. Yeah. Like, you see the hit coming, and it's like a TJ on Baker Mayfield hit that you see it, and you're watching it in slow motion, but in real time, you're like, oh dear Lord, pray for this guy's soul. That's the way I feel with Bridgewater. But Brissett, let's say they bring somebody out like that. All these people are going to be like last year, like the talking heads on TV in July and August, like when they were with Melvin Ingram. And it's like you completely ignored that Alex Highsmith was there, and he was always going to be the starter. They added Ingram for depth and rotation. And I don't know what they tell him at the table when he inks his contract and then he complains about it midway through the season and wants trade. Like what his idea was otherwise.
Dude, I know.
And it's the same thing with the quarterbacks. If you have Brissett, everybody's going to be talking about penciling him in as the starter, and I don't think that's the case. The only reason this would maybe be the case is they don't feel comfortable. They're not going to draft somebody, or they don't feel comfortable that somebody will be there at 20, the player that they want.
Yeah.
And on the flip side of that, too, is I don't think it's necessarily like a vote of non-confidence in Rudolph. It would be more of no confidence in Haskins as the backup.
Yeah.
That's the way I would see it. If they draft someone, I don't think that would be the other thing. Oh, they're going to play. And it's like, I don't know about that necessarily. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think Mike Tomlin, they would sit this guy for a year, do the Andy Reid deal like they did with Patrick Mahomes. And then maybe it works out that way. But I don't know. My hope is I don't want to have to deal with any of this. I'll roll with the other guys because if the team stinks, then they draft higher next year. And then, you know what? We're talking about all the great picks and moves that they made this year that are carrying in and having a strong roster next year, and Minka being extended and Deontay being extended and all these other things that probably won't happen. But anyways.
I think the Minka extension's coming soon because Cole alluded to that after the draft. They were going to try to get that done. So that'll probably happen soon, I hope. And yeah, man, I'm with you. I'm with you on a lot of stuff. And we have our disagreements, but we agree more often than we don't. And I don't want them to do anything stupid as far as paying too much for a quarterback who's not going to be like the guy for years to come. Like, don't put a lot of money into some guy who's going to come in for a quarterback battle and then possibly not win the job, you know, because then what, you're stuck with him. You got to cut him. You got to trade him.
And you take valuable development time from the other two guys that you're saying Haskins is immature and Rudolph hasn't played enough. Like, those guys need a camp. They need experience.
If they draft a guy too, you're taking experience away from him. And I think that it's too hard for me, honestly, to project what would happen if they did draft a rookie right now as far as the plan to get him on the field, because all the words about Malik Willis is he's going to need a year. There's a chance that he comes into camp and is showing out like gangbusters and he gets on the field, but most experts that I like respect their opinion think he needs about a year to sit, like Trey Lance or like Mahomes. Pickett could probably play a lot sooner. He's pro ready and he might be ready week 1, week 2, week 3. So rookies kind of have an asterisk as far as what I think Tomlin and Colbert will be gone after the draft, but what I think Tomlin wants to do with a rookie quarterback, I think is dependent upon which rookie it is and how they look in camp. That might sound like a cop-out because I'm like, well, we have to see. But, I mean, I could see them picking a rookie and him playing if he's ready.
You know, won't keep you much longer. We need to put a bow on this as we're going a little late. But that's the other idea. Does Kevin Colbert just draft a quarterback and then the next GM, it's like, here you go, sucker, you're stuck with this guy? That's not usually how those things work. They're usually inexplicably tied to the GM / coach and moving forward in those cases. I mean, not obviously the Steelers weren't from Cowher to Tomlin. Ben Roethlisberger was already the man, you know what I mean? But yeah, we see it all the time. And I was already thinking of it like with Jacksonville, like, oh my goodness, what's going to happen to Trevor Lawrence there? You know, you had a new GM and then Urban Meyer and burns out. But you see the same thing. Daniel Jones right now in New York, that's the prime example. And that's where I think Trubisky heads too, by the way. We probably missed somebody, but you know what? We'll be back on this, and we're going to find out. We're going to fill in some of the blanks. But, hey, bro, it's been good finally getting you on, finally having you here. I'm sure a lot of other people will be saying the same thing. So thanks for coming on the show and taking a little time out of your day to entertain us and mostly agree with me.
For sure, dude. For sure. I'm happy to come on. Long time coming. Love to do it again sometime. I've actually never done a podcast ever before, so this is my first time. So I hope the people are nice in the comments. For my mom, she said good luck. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, we're about an hour and a half away here from the tampering period opening up. So next time we'll have even more to talk about, man.
Yeah, so hopefully this is up by then and I don't have more technical difficulties. So we call all the people that are still hanging around at this point 2%ers. You yourself probably have never heard that term here on the show. I don't think you hang around that long and listen to me and Brian yak, but definitely come back on, my friend, and we'll do this again for sure. And hopefully this isn't the last time I get to wear this jersey, but if it is, so be it. I had to get one more use out of it, so we'll see if Edmonds comes back.
Put mine on because I got one too. I should go put mine on.
Yeah, well, you got to plan ahead with this. You know, wardrobe, wardrobe, costume, makeup. Yeah, I know, man. I like it. I dig that shirt. That's very cool. I'm digging the stuff that you got up on the wall too. That we're gonna have to see, man. I was talking about this as to whether or not Juju, if he doesn't sign, does this still stay up? Because this is a pretty big moment.
I think
in
so.
Recent Steelers memory.
So. I have the same question myself. I'm going to leave my pieces of artwork that I have of Juju up because, he's still a big part of this generation of the Steelers. The perfect hit, that was kind of like him reestablishing the toughness over Perfect. Perfect had this intimidating presence about him, and Juju ended that. And that's very Steeler-like. And there's some players that I think they have such a big impact and they mean so much to the fans that even when they're gone, it's okay to leave their pictures up for sure.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have any of my Antonio Brown stuff anywhere anymore, but
he's a special case.
Yeah, it still pains me, man. It's like he's been saying a lot of pleasantries about Ben again. He's patching that relationship a little bit, so we'll see. All right, folks, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, my name is Joe. That is Zac Celedonia at ZEFlashNFL on Twitter. If you didn't already know, go follow the tweets. Until next time, as always, we encourage everyone out there to be safe, be good, and we'll catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.